Hey guys, welcome to our very first game which we're going to make in PyCharm. In this project, we're going to be generating a random password. The concept this project will require are lists, for loops, if conditions, importing libraries and using its predefined functions, and we're also going to be using many functions made by the Python team such as len, int, str, and input. Not only does this project cover several key fundamentals, but it will also help us in real life and strengthen our coding skills. With around 50 lines of code, our output should look something like this. So to start our program, first of all, we need to, of course, open PyCharm up. We're gonna have to create a new project, file, new project. Let's name it generating a password. This window. And once we have a project ready, we know first of all we have to create three lists which is going to consist of a letter, a symbol, and a number. So each list is going to consist of letters, numbers, and symbols. So I'm going to introduce a variable. I'm going to tell the computer this is a list by square brackets, and I'm going to add all of the letters in the alphabet inside my list. So to speeden this up, I'm going to paste all of these lists. So as you can see, my letters list has all the letters in the alphabet, my numbers has all the numbers, and my symbols likewise. So we need to ask the user if the password requires numbers, if it requires symbols, how many characters it requires in the password, and if my password needs a higher case letter. So I'm going to introduce another variable and I'm going to ask the user, I'm going to take input from the user if they need a number in their password. So I'm going to name my variable number required and I'm going to ask the user for input, and double quotes I'll ask them, does the password require a number? And I'm going to ask the user to give me the answer in Boolean form, which is true or false. And I'm going to convert this answer that the user gives into title form. So a title form is basically any number, any word. For example, a normal word is going to be with, and in title form that word's going to be converted into with a capital W because of this title function. So over here I am making lists, and over here I'm asking user for type of password they want to make. So that's my number required done. So if to ask them if they want a number in the password. Now I'm going to do the same for symbol. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to name it symbol required this time. Does this password require a symbol? And we've done it for the symbol. And we're going to do the same for a higher case letter. So the reason I'm asking all this is because some websites, they require a strong password, and a strong password consists of a number, a symbol, and a higher case letter. Lastly, we need to ask the user how many characters our password should have. So I'll make sure to ask that at the really top. characters is equal to int. So what this int function does, you know, it's already a predefined function because it's colored in purple just as you write it. This int function converts anything we pass into it into an integer. An integer is a whole number. So whatever we reply to the input, it's going to convert that into an integer. So I'm going to ask the user how many characters does the password require. So we've asked the user all types of questions for the type of password they want to make. And now we're gonna choose our letters randomly, choose our letters, numbers, symbols randomly from these lists, and we're gonna add it to our main password according to the answer to these questions. I'm gonna make a passwords list, and this password list is gonna consist of all of the letters, all of the characters in our password. So first of all, we're gonna add a number in our password. So we're gonna write if number required is true. We don't have to write is equal to true, although this would work with double equal to because it's an if condition, but we're not gonna write it because it's unnecessary. If number required, then we should add a random number from the numbers list and we should put it in our password. So we're gonna write password dot append. So this append function, it adds anything we pass into these brackets inside this passwords list. So I'm gonna have to choose a random number from this list. So to choose a random number from to choose any random thing, there's a predefined library called random. And to use that in our code, we must have to write import and then the name of the library. Importing libraries, because that's what we're doing here. And if we go into the documentation of this random library, all we need to type is Python random library documentation, and we can click on the first link and we're going to see the documentation of the random library. So you can go through this documentation if you want to see all the functions you can use and all the things you can do with this amazing library. And one of the functions is called randint. So if we find the randint by pressing Ctrl F, we're gonna see random.randint. It returns a random integer such that it's more than the first value and it's less than the second value we passed. So we're gonna use that. It says the syntax is random.randint, so that's exactly what we're gonna write. And now we have to pass the A and B inside this bracket. So I want my random number to be in between 0 and the number of items inside my numbers list. So to work out the number of items inside my list and not hard code it, I have to use a predefined function called len. This len function, it works out what is the length of the list, how many values are in the list. So I'll pass in my numbers list inside this len, and I'll subtract it by 1 because the index of a list starts from 0. So now we find out a random number from my numbers list. I forgot to add it over here because we have to find a random number from the numbers list, so we have to put that inside square brackets, and we have added the number we get inside the password. We're gonna do the same thing for our symbol. Just copy it and paste it, and instead of number I'm gonna write symbol. If symbol requires equal to true, then password dot append, I'm gonna change my numbers to symbols, length of symbols, and that's that. Lastly, I have to do the same for my higher cases too. If higher case required, then password dot append letters. Remember, we have to make the whatever letter we get from this list, we have to convert it into an uppercase. So to do that, I'll write letters, and just before, if we don't write a function, which I'm going to tell you, then it's not gonna convert it into uppercase. It's gonna stay lowercase, and we don't want that. So over here I'm gonna write dot upper with double curved brackets. So the random letter we get from this letters list, it's going to take that letter and it's going to convert it into an uppercase because of the function that we've written over here. And remember, this is a predefined function made by the Python team. So if we want to print our password so far, if we print the password and run it, how many characters does the password require? I haven't done that yet. We'll do that right in a moment. Let's write 7, for example. Does the password require a number? Let's write true. Does it require a symbol? We'll write true. And does the password require a higher case letter? We'll also write true. And as you can see, in our password consists of a number, a symbol, and a higher case letter. Now we want our password to have as many symbols as we tell it to have over here. So in this instance, I've told the password to have 7 characters, but right now my password only has 3. So to do that, I need to add the remaining amount of characters as letters. So I need to add 4 more letters to this list to make it a proper password we can use. So to do that, I'll need to use a for loop. I'm going to use a for loop, and I'm going to make the range 0 till the number of characters our password requires minus the length of our password, the length our password already has. So it's going to run till 0 till characters, which is equal to 7. 7 minus 3, because that's the length of our password, which is equal to 4. And over here, we're going to select a random letter from my list of letters over here, and I'm going to append the value we get into our password. So to do that, I'll do the same thing as I've done over here, and over here. Password.append random dot rand int 0 length of letters minus 1. And if I print my password now, run, I want my password to have 8 characters. I want it to have a number. Let's say I don't want it to have a symbol, and I want it to have a higher case letter. Oh, over here I've got numbers instead of letters. So that is because we haven't added the name of the list over here. I'll write letters and put square brackets around here. So now if I run my program, I want 7 characters. I want this to be true, I want this to be true, and I want this to be false. You'll see we've got our letters over here, and we've got a total of 7 characters. But notice that over here, when we told the computer to not add a higher case letter in our list, it still did. So let's debug this problem. Let's see what the type is of the variable higher case required. So to do that, we're going to write print type of higher case required. So what this is going to do, is going to tell us what type this higher case required is. Is it a boolean? Is it a string? Is it an integer? So I'll write this as 7 true, true, false. It says that this higher case required variable is a string. So that's why when we write if number required is equal to true, it doesn't work, because if we write it as false, it's still going to think it's true because it's not a boolean. So to do that, we'll just change this into true for all of the conditions. Remember to add double equal to signs, or else the computer is going to throw an error. Equal to true, equal to true. So now if we run our program, on 8 characters, true, I don't want a number, and I don't want a higher case letter. You see we don't have a symbol, and we don't have a higher case letter, and we only have one number, and all of the other 7 characters in our password are lists. So I don't want my password in list form because I won't be able to copy and paste it anywhere. So to resolve this final problem, we have to convert this list into a string. So to do that, I'm going to make another variable named final password, and it's going to be a blank string. I want to add all my characters in my password one by one into my final password string. So to do that, I'm going to have to write a for loop. For x in the name of the list, which is password. So every time the for loop runs, x's value will become the first value inside the list. So for x in password, final password plus equal to string x. So this converts x into a string, and plus equal to, it concatenates this into the empty final password string. So if I now print the final password off, I'm gonna write how many characters. I want 8 characters. I want a number. I want a symbol, and also want a high case. You're gonna see over here, this is our final password. But to make our password harder to guess, I want to shuffle all of the characters in my password up. So to do that, I'm going to tab into my list, and I'm going to use a predefined function named shuffle in my random already, which is in the random library. So if I go into my documentation again and I search up shuffle this time, you're going to see there's a function called random.shuffle, and you pass in a list inside these square brackets. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to write random.shuffle, and we're going to put the name of the list before we add all the values of our list inside our empty string, which was final password. So when you run a program, you should see all the characters which were in our string. They should be all muddled up, all jumbled up. Right, this says false. Now you see they're not in a specific order. Some of like there's letters, then there's a number, then there's letters again, then there's a symbol, and then there's a letter. So it's completely random, and this password's much more secure, and there's no way that the computer's gonna say no, this password's not strong enough. So there you go, we've got a simple password generator program created, and if you think about it, this program was really easy. It had many fundamentals which covered, like stated in my PowerPoint over here: lists, for loops, if conditions, functions, and libraries. And make sure that you go into the documentation of predefined libraries, because these are really handy, and if you don't want to write all the code in, you can just search up a library and get the code. So I hope my video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.